Hi, this is Tony Cotti, and you're listening to the We Are West Ham podcast.
You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, James Jones, and no Tom Edwards this week. He's out earning his crust in the freezing cold while me and Jonesy sit and talk about West Ham in the warm. Since we last spoke, I've been to a football game. James Jones hasn't. West Ham have dropped to 8th in the table. What a tragedy. And a combination of a professionally paid linesman and the most expensive set of camera technologies in the world, also known as VAR, could not tell that Dean Henderson's clearance was about 10 yards off the pitch in the build-up to Manchester United's equaliser, even though the ball brushed my nose as I was sitting in the West Stand at London Stadium. Finally came crashing down to earth. West Ham lost 3-1 to Man United at the London Stadium. Mixed feelings, I think, among the fan base after the game, but we are still 8th, so positives to take nonetheless. Jonesy, you didn't get to go at the weekend. You said last week you weren't that bothered. Me and Tom were lucky enough to come up trumps and wangle our way in to the stadium. Having seen the game, have you changed your stance on not that bothered whether I go or not from last week?
Hello, mate. I think as the day wore on, getting closer to going to kick off, I thought, actually, no, I really wish I was going. Because it was quite a nice little build up to the game. It's different than what we've been used to over lockdown, where people have taken pictures of them on the train on the way up there and out on Twitter and stuff. And I was like, I wish that was me. But yeah, still managed to catch the game at home, and just a frustrating story in them, wasn't it? But I was very jealous of pictures of you and Tom at the ground as well, just like rubbing salt into the wound, saying I miss you on the WhatsApp group. It's like, yeah, cheers, guys.
You do love a train selfie as well, to be honest, don't you?
Big fan of them. Underrated, by the way. Underrated.
Not just on the way to football, on the way to work. I remember your one earlier in the year, your first day back at work after lockdown, showing everyone you wearing your mask and all that on Instagram.
To make sure
prime content. For people
prime content. Make sure everyone knows that I'm travelling safe, considerate, but most importantly, going out there and keeping the economy afloat by working throughout a lockdown. So, I was doing my bit.
Yeah, you're such a hero, aren't you? Combined with your COVID denier status. Still wearing a mask, just in case. Tom Edwards tonight. He's out, as I say, in the freezing cold, working his little socks off, and he couldn't get back in time. I know he was gutted to miss it. As I said, me and Tom were lucky enough to get in and see the game at the London Stadium on Saturday night. Very fortunate to be able to get in and see that. Didn't get the tickets through the ballot. Lucky enough to know someone in corporate section, and it was just lovely to be back. To be honest, Josie, one very aware that that was in a bit more of a fortunate position than most in that. Missed out on the ballot as you did, and I'll be back in it for the Crystal Palace game, because I think that will certainly be, those corporate things won't be rolling in every week. That's for sure. I'm not quite as, what did we used to call you on Love Sport Radio? What did Charlie Hawkins used to call you? It was something to do with Hospo.
Hospo, yeah,
James Hospo Jones, wasn't it? Because you had a little got schmoozed at the Watford away game the other week. But absolutely really appreciative of being fortunate enough to get in and go. And it was a wonderful day, mate, to be honest. It was just so nice to be back. I was spitting feathers afterwards. I was so grumpy by the end of the game. All it meant, because there wasn't as many people in, is I had more room to slump back in my seat, sit there with my arms folded like this for the last 15 minutes after it was clear that
you'd have been like that. You'd have been like that if we won, though. To be fair,
well, that is maybe true, but it was brilliant to be back, and that was. Although after the game, the football was annoying, but when I got back home, I was definitely had a feeling of that's nice. As much as going to West Ham's nice, just feeling like life's getting back to normal a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just like go there with with people that you like, and it's just nice seeing people in those settings again, which you're like, oh blimey, I became so aware that I hadn't done something like that for so long. But yeah, brilliant stuff to be back there again. Fingers crossed where perhaps we get a ticket on. Obviously we don't sit together at football, but fingers crossed we get a ticket in the ballot on the same day, and go and have a few beers and stuff. As a few lucky
have a substantial meal together.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah. A
Maybe like
substantial
Scotch eggs.
meal of 5 pints.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what did you make of the game then, mate? Because so no Tom tonight, so it's the pressure's on me and you again, like the old Love Sport Radio days. But what did you make of the football before I come in and ruin it with all of my negativity? Just briefly before we go into it in a bit more detail in section 2.
I mean, I will keep it short and sweet for this section, but it's like frustrating, as I said before. Like, we missed so many chances, and the VAR situation probably didn't annoy me as much as it should have done, because I think we could have helped ourselves so much better with better quality of finishing in front of goal. You know, that VAR decision, did it change the game? You know, I'm not too sure. I think the changes they made at half time, they would have probably still won that game. Had we gone in at half time 3-4-0 up like we should have done, then okay, you know, we've won the game then, and we don't need to rely on VAR, you know, messing up silly decisions like that. You know, it was in our hands going 1-0 up. You know, we could have been 1-0 up before we went 1-0 up, and then to then only go in at half time 1-0 with United having the bench that they had, knowing that they already got a Solskjaer, was probably going to make that move. If it wasn't at half time, we'd have made it within 10 minutes of the second half to change the game, and he did it at half time, and that was that. And we could have even scored at the beginning of the second half. Jared Bowen missed that open goal, which would have put the game to bed. Maybe then they don't go up the other end and score shortly afterwards, and we go on and win the game after that. So I don't think the VAR thing changed it as much, but just frustrating all round because it was a game of two halves. I mean, you just can't, not against teams like that, you can't waste chances like that.
I love how you've wrapped up that segment with 3 of the ultimate football cliches there. Game of two halves. You can't waste chances against teams like that. Love it. I will argue with you in part 2 as to the Bowen miss you mentioned there when Kufal, I don't know why he hasn't shot. My dad's still convinced it was a shot, and that just happened to be the worst shot ever that ended up looking like a cross. But we'll go into that in part 2. Just because Tom's not here tonight, we've still got a packed We Are West Ham podcast coming up on the show tonight. And part 2, as always, we'll dig into the most recent game this week. It's, of course, Manchester United 3-1 defeat at the London Stadium on Saturday evening. We had another Leeds slip. We'll talk about the wasted opportunities, VAR, the reports of fans booing the players kneeling before the game. Obviously had the chance to go third. Saeed Benrahma came off the bench, Sebastian Haller. And of course, we asked the We Are West Ham listeners what they thought on Twitter, as we always do. It's good to get the thoughts from the listeners at WeAre_West Ham on Twitter if you don't follow us already to get involved in the poll. This week, we asked fans what annoyed them most about the Manchester United game at the weekend. So we'll have the results from that. The Betway charity bets, of course, are back after last week's stonking episode when me and Tom pulled in more than £1,400 for our respective charities, which was brilliant. We'll have the opposition view with Darren Harper from the LS11 podcast ahead of Friday night's game, of course. Friday night at Elland Road under the lights. Quizmaster, we're going to have a break from Quizmaster this week with no Tom. Of course, we can't have him, me or James, racking up points without him. It's a 3-way game, so we can't do it without him. But I have got one prepared. I had one prepared before he had to duck out, so it's an absolute peach ready for next week. Of course, we will wrap up the show, as ever, with the West Ham women and narrow 3-2 defeat to Chelsea in the WSL at the weekend. But some positive signs from life after Matt Beard, that's for sure. We will, of course, wrap up with the fantasy football update. And to be quite honest with you, I wish we were doing a whole show on fantasy football this week. I think it was my personal best ever score in a week for fantasy football. James Jones actually did all right for once. Obviously, still didn't beat me, but he didn't do too bad after he overhauled his team and was absolutely head in hands last week. But Jonesy, great show, busy show coming up despite Tom's absence. Like I said, just like the old days, for those of you listening who were listeners to the West Ham show on Love Sport Radio, where this podcast was born, when me and Jonesy would tuck ourselves away in a studio in Southwark every Tuesday night and broadcast live to the nation. Don't you miss those days, Jonesy? As much as I love doing this now, it was absolutely brilliant to see Tom on the weekend. I think it was the first time since we had our little end of season beers. That'd be the same last time I saw you in person as well, which is May. So 7 months, becoming a bit of a drag now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I do miss those times purely because we used to enjoy about 2 or 3 pints in the pub before we got into the studio. But yeah, no, it's the quicker we can all get back together in the same room and do this, the better, I think. But hopefully, as you said before, we can all get a ballot ticket and all meet up sooner rather than later. And maybe we could try and combine a little bit of audio from that meeting and stick it in the middle of a pod. We don't know. We'll see what happens.
Exactly, mate. Yeah, and rules, etc. allowing, hopefully we'll be able to do a pre-Christmas episode together in person, socially distanced, etc. Of course, if we can make that work, that'd be great. But a little bit of housekeeping before we start the show properly. James Jones, you did a fantastic job on it last week, but I'm going to take it back off your hands this week. You know, ease you into these sort of things. I don't want to throw them at you too much at once. So follow us on Twitter if you don't already, to see all the stuff we're up to, all the competitions and giveaways that we do. We gave away some more goods from the Art of Football last week. We've got some more coming up in and around the Christmas period. Obviously the Twitter polls as well, and you get updates on the latest episode, bonus video content and promo. That is on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch every single episode as well as listen to me and the lads, and a few more of you are doing that each week. Not obviously huge numbers, but yeah, still the main bunch of you listening on the podcast. But if you do want to see what we look like, see Jonesy's lovely backdrop of his flat, my little West Ham scarf draped over my door, and I've got a picture behind me actually of 2 flamingos copulating. You can't see it in full, but I might show that later. So these are all the treats that you would be exposed to, I suppose, on YouTube if you want to watch us on there. So go down to the podcast description on this podcast, on whatever platform you're listening on, and the link to our YouTube channel is in there. The videos go up sometime on Wednesday, so if you're listening Wednesday morning and you go and click on it and you wonder where it is, don't worry, it might be sort of later on Wednesday. But you can also go back, of course, not to labour the point, but you can watch our interview with former West Ham assistant manager Wally Downs we had last week. We've had Boys of 86 legends Frank McAvenny and Tony Cottee. We've had Craig Forrest. We've also had Tony Gow, and that's just in the last 5 or 6 weeks. All of those are available to watch on YouTube. If you fancy doing that and going back and listening to our guests, then we'd love you to do that. So go down to the podcast description. I think, James, you can get in touch on email, can't you? wearewesthampod@gmail.com. If people just want to let us know what they're up to for Christmas, let us know how they're doing, ask us any questions, whatever, any of those things. And also, I've got a couple of spare programmes from the Manchester United game at the weekend. So if anyone is out there, programme collectors or whatever, do give us a shout, and we're more than happy to post them out to you. But that's it for housekeeping, Jonesy. Let's get into it. The Manchester United section is coming up because I am rightfully furious this time. I know you think I'm furious when we win, but this time I think my anger is definitely warranted. So stay with us for the menu review next. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, and James Jones. No Tom Edwards this week. Bless him. He's out there somewhere in the freezing cold in Kingston. I think he lives somewhere around that area, freezing his little socks off. Me and Jonesy are here. Don't worry about that, in the nice and warm. Jonesy, I like you. Is that a roll neck you got on today?
Yeah, mate. Yeah,
I like that.
That's the weather for him, isn't it?
Exactly. It's definitely festive time of the year, isn't it? So, Manchester United. Josie, I did this last week. I think it worked quite nicely when we were reviewing the Aston Villa game. There's a few main talking points from United and the United game. And I'm going to let you go first and decide what you want to talk about. So, we've got the fact we let another lead slip, the wasted opportunities, VAR, the reports of fans booing, the kneel before the game, the fact we blew the chance to go third, but we're still eighth, Said Benrahma coming off the bench, or Sebastian Haller. I'll let you go. We have done the We Are West Ham Twitter poll. I've got thoughts on all of those topics, some more than others, but I'll let you go first.
Well, I've already mentioned it in the intro, like wasted opportunities. And it felt like, for me, watching it, missed opportunity after missed opportunity and sort of real clear-cut chances to score. It was as if the players couldn't believe that suddenly we're quite good at creating chances. I think, and I quite like my stats, and I always look at XG and stuff like that. And our XG was just under 3, I think, which shows just how many good chances we blew in that game. And to not go in at half time more than 1-0 up was always going to end up. I think I tweeted it at half time. I was like, it's probably one of the best halves of football I've seen us play in a long time. Definitely this season, because we were superb in that first half. But, we're probably going to blow it in a second, because you knew Bruno Fernandes was going to come on. I didn't even flinch when I didn't even flinch when I saw that he was on the bench. It was like, he's going to come on and he'll do something, because he's that sort of player. Rashford as well.
Why did he start on the bench?
I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was trying to rest him for the Champions League game tonight, because it's a big game, isn't it? And thought
realised the rest of his team was naff.
Yeah, just thought, it's only West Ham, like it'll be fine. And then realised at half time, actually, going to need you, Bruno. And he pulled it out the bag, and Marcus Rashford with his pace just opened us up. Like suddenly they were putting balls in over the defence, over the top, and him and Greenwood were running onto it. And even when Mata come off the bench, like he got an assist. So when you don't put those chances away, and 4 or 5 clear-cut chances, Haller 1-on-1, like he's fallen over his own feet.
Let's list them. Let's list them.
You've got the Fornals header back post.
Yeah, that huge.
I thought it was a goal. I thought it'd gone in.
So obviously we'll have different viewpoints on these, and I was looking forward to talking to you because obviously you had 2 different views. So I was in the West Stand, or the main stand where the tunnel is at London Stadium on Saturday, sort of in line with the penalty area where at the Bobby Moore end. So
yep.
I was down the other end from all the goals, actually. I don't think any of them went in down my end. So that one, the Fornals one, and I haven't watched Match of the Day since, basically just because we lost and I was sulking. But the Fornals one, all comes in, he's at the back post, and boy, he has it wide, didn't he? And I'm thinking, you've got to at least get it on target. I know it was difficult to you should have scored. At least get it on target and make the keeper do something or parry it out or whatever. But was it as clear cut as that? That's what it looked like from where I was sat.
I think for me it was a clear cut opportunity. You've got to hit the target, because he wasn't really marked. It was a free header at the back post. And he made good contact with it as well. It was a good header, apart from the fact it went on target. But you do see those where players scuff headers like that at the back post and it hits the side netting. And watching it on TV, it looked like it had gone in. But yeah, for me, that's a clear-cut chance all day long. Don't know if you want to move on to the next one, the Haller one.
Yeah, do. No, I'm just, that one was proper big for me, that one.
Haller, watching it on TV, in that split second, I thought he'd slipped. And I was like, that's unfortunate.
This is where he broke through on goal. He played through on goal.
Gone round the keeper. But then instead of having a shot there and then, he's decided to pull it back. And that decision to pull it back, I thought he'd slipped. And I thought, okay, that's annoying. Turns out he just fell over his own feet.
So again, I haven't seen it back from where I was sat.
He's fallen over his own feet. He can't get his feet back out from underneath him when he's pulled the ball back, and he's ended up falling over rather than slipping. If he'd have slipped, okay, benefit of the doubt, he slipped. It is what it is.
Was he
But
offside though? Yes or no?
No, he wasn't offside. He was onside.
He wasn't.
He was
Ah,
onside.
wow. So I was thinking, that doesn't matter. He's off.
No, he was on. He was on because
Right.
they looked at it. The commentators were like, "Oh, he might have been offside," and then looked at it and went, "No, he was on. He was well on." And I'm just baffled at his decision to pull the ball back and wait for the two defenders to rush in and get on the line. You know, just slot it in. And with those two defenders rushing in, even if you slot it in, it goes in between them. It's difficult for them to defend it when they're running in and you've had a shot.
Yeah. It didn't look like he had the time and space to do it from where I was sat in. But
He did. I mean, the defenders were coming up on him fast because he's not the quickest of players, is he? But he'd already ran to the keeper. He'd done all the hard work. And then that decision to pull it back cost him. And I'm just baffled by it, to be fair. But
yeah,
I put it down to him just lacking a bit of confidence still. Because if he's got confidence, he slots that in straight after the keeper. He might even not even round the keeper. He takes a shot. And I think him lacking in confidence means he pulls the ball back just to be absolutely sure he's going to get it. And then he's fallen over his own feet, bless him. So, yeah.
Right, Vladimir Kufal, then he storms down the right-hand side. He's basically like at the 6-yard box. All right, I'm exaggerating a bit, but he's broken into the penalty area. And you think, I'm just screaming at him. This was down my end. I'm just going, shoot. Not just because he's in my fantasy team, but I'm just thinking, he's got so much space, you can't not shoot there. And I don't really know. I mean, it looked to me that he then decided to cross it, but he fires it at Jared Bowen at about 100 miles an hour. Bowen, again, puts it wide, but I thought at no point was annoyed with Bowen. I was just furious with Kufal for not shooting. And even if you are going to cross, he fired it at him so hard. That's why my dad's convinced. I'm going, why didn't he shoot? And he sat there next to me going, well, he did. He's just not very good at it. That was my take on it. I don't know. You said I've seen a few takes that are a bit annoyed with Bowen for not doing better with it. The TV replays any different? Or
just before we go on to that, we've forgotten Fornell's hitting the post with a P roller as well in the first half.
I don't think
he's toe poked it. He's toe poked it, and you can see what he was doing.
You don't think you can blame him though, can you?
The ball was underneath him, and I don't think he had a great deal of time to get the shot away. But he sort of p-rolled it onto the post, and quite a clever attempt on goal. But yeah, it was just frustrating. The Kufal one, I think I'm still waiting for him to shoot now, because it was like he's got that ball in so much space. He's gone into the box. There was nothing else on other than ping it top bins. He had so much time.
Any bins,
across
bring it middle bins if you want.
Across the goalkeeper, that's going top or bottom.
Bottom left.
Lovely. 2-0, happy days. And instead as I said, I'm still waiting for him to shoot now. Because
why did...
No one knows
why. Why are you annoyed with Bowen then? Why have you called that? Not annoyed. No. Why did you describe that as a Bowen miss rather than a Kufal mistake?
Well, because even though Kufal's decided not to shoot and has decided to put the ball across the goal for Bowen to tap in at the back, Bowen's missed an open goal. He's missed an open goal. Okay, he's sliding in. It makes it a little bit harder for him to finish it off.
And he fired it at him
but
about
if
900
you watch the
miles an hour.
if you watch the replay, that's an open goal miss from Jared Bowen. He's missed an open goal. It's not as tight when you're watching it in real time. You think, okay, that might have been a bit tight, it's coming at him quick. But if you watch the replays, he's got to score. He's got to score. Got to.
Bowen was watching it in real time, though.
And
Bowen didn't have the benefit of the replay, did he?
But he's got onto it. He's got onto it. He made good contact as well. And if you watch it back, you'll see it's an open goal. He's missed it. He's fluffed it.
Yeah, irritated. But then, sometimes when you watch a game, you sort of got that gloomy feeling when you're like, you know what? We've missed those. We're going to rue those chances. I didn't really have them. At half time, I was loving it. I was sort of, this is so good. Back at football again. West Ham have beaten Man United 1-0. Yeah. I've never been away, blah, blah, blah.
That might have been the beers clouding your judgment, mate, I think.
Well, that's true, yeah. I don't know. I just didn't have that feeling. And then all of a sudden, like when Henderson clears that ball, we'll move on to it now. When Henderson clears that ball, honestly, mate, again, it was my side of the pitch. I was like, that's off. And I was like, wow, the lino hasn't flagged. That's bizarre. Anyway, scuttles up, ends up at Pogba, and he rifles a brilliant shot in. I was like, blimey, fair play. Shame it's not going to count. Honestly, just sitting back, laid back, arms folded. Yeah, no problem. Still 1-0. We're riding this out quite well here. And then come up on the screen, like VAR checking goal. I thought, brilliant. Thank God for that. I thought the VAR might not be able to check the sidelines or something, and there was going to be a complete catastrophe and it was going to count. And then he points to the middle, and I'm looking at it side on, but I was like, that can't have been on the pitch still. He kicked the ball about 5 yards in from the side. His body was facing off the pitch anyway. I was like, there's no way. And the geezer down the other end, I can't remember who it was, Matter or whoever controlled it, also controlled it about 5 yards in from the side of the pitch. I was like, no chances. He rifled that straight down the line.
Yeah.
And that is a sort of thing, mate. I was pro VAR beforehand. I spoke about it lots on this podcast, on the radio, and written about it of all sorts. We've spoken about it as well, no doubt. I was very pro VAR, and every time in my head I had, because when you play Man United at Old Trafford or wherever, there's none of that big club bias anymore. Like, it can't. Computers don't have any of that. And then I see that at the weekend, and then I see the graphics on Twitter on the way home. People on the group chats are saying, "No, that's definitely off. What a joke!" And then you see it, and I just think, what's the point? What's the point of what is the point? How can Match of the Day pull up some basic graphic later? The linesman scrap VAR. The linesman is not even looking at the ball. I mean, what an embarrassment! What a shambles that is. And Moyes afterwards, he's totally right, going, well, VAR, whatever. Yeah, obviously VAR is ridiculous, but everyone's so bored of it now because it is a sham. But the linesman, the thing we've had all the time, like the number one job he's put on the pitch for is check if the ball goes out of play at the sides. And he's not even looking. It's not even a mistake. That's awful.
What's worse about the lino not looking is he doesn't even, because of VAR, he doesn't need to be looking for the offside. Because if he misses the offside and the goal goes in, then they'll go to VAR and they'll check the offside anyway. So if anything, the lino, it doesn't matter whether the lino's looking for offside anymore. The lino has no say over offside anymore.
They might as well not even flag for him, mightn't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, they even stopped flagging for him because he went up to a goal because VAR's there to back him up. But that's what annoys me the most with that, is that he's looking out for something that the computer's there to look for, or VAR's there to look for, instead of looking for something that he's there to look for. And that's the baffling thing about it. And also, if you're going to use VAR to check things like that, then you need the cameras in place.
Exactly. Don't put the sign up in the stadium, innit?
When they're looking, I didn't even think they could check things like that for VAR until I don't like. It was a bit of confusion watching it on TV whether they were going to even check it. And then that goes, right, yeah, they are checking it. And you think, right, okay, well, they're definitely going to, because even watching it in real time on the telly, you could see the ball had gone out. And we've probably got a similar view from that you probably had in the stadium, because the TV cameras are probably behind where you were sitting. And it's like, yeah, that's definitely out. And he just, as soon as he went to VAR, you're like, yeah, they'll get it, because they'll have a camera down the line. If they're going to check it on VAR, then they'll have that camera to check. Oh, no, sorry, no, the camera's actually about 10 yards in the pitch, so you can't get a down the line view. But then if you look at it, as the ball goes over David Moyes' head, David Moyes is applauding, and he's applauding Jared Bowen closing Henderson down and forcing the ball to go out of play. Why is David Moyes applauding the ball staying on the pitch?
Yeah.
If VAR can't see what's gone out, look at the manager's reaction. David Moyes is clapping his hands above his head. He's not doing that if he can see the ball still in play. He can see the ball above his head. He's off the pitch, so the ball's got to be off the pitch.
Honestly,
the whole thing's just baffling. And then when Match of the Day show VAR up by having that camera down the line and then proving that the ball did actually go out of play, as you said, it's shambolic. It's shambolic, and if it wasn't shambolic before, it definitely is now, because you can't give goals like that. You can't.
The whole thing, it's just, I mean, from minute one, the linesman not looking, I mean, that's like,
It's laughable.
That should be sackable, and not sackable. You know what I mean? He should be demoted to the Championship for a few weeks just for that.
Yeah.
If a referee has a proper poor game, not actually looking where you're supposed to be looking, what is that? What on earth is that?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like fundamental of being a linesman. That was bad, yeah. And then to put it up in the stadium, then saying you're checking it when you haven't got the technology or the capability to check it. Why do that as well? I mean, how many?
They were essentially using just a normal TV camera that was behind the goal to determine to see whether the ball gone out of play. And with that camera, you couldn't really see. It was literally like because the angle that they used to check, and they only used one angle. Because of that, as soon as I saw that they were only using that one angle, I was like, they're going to allow this because you couldn't tell. The only way you could tell was David Moyes' reaction.
That's embarrassing.
And it was just like, hang on, why are you checking it then? Because you're using Sky's TV camera rather than your own like technology. So it is what it is. Like,
and I do think, mate, after that, the fact that's the equaliser, I do think we were all right until I was fairly comfortable. I know what you're saying, but I think it sort of jaded everyone. Everyone's like, oh no. Then they had that awkward bit of not knowing whether to go for the game or settle for or respect the point against Man United. And then I think with that, they sort of left themselves a bit open, not really concentrating. And the second one goes in. Oh, it's a brilliant goal, isn't it? Of course. And by the time the third one came, they're forced to stretch themselves, and then it goes over the top. Rashford exploits it. Whilst I don't think, I think conceding 3 goals in 45 minutes against any team, unless you're Tottenham and you do it in 7 minutes, it's not very good or very professional on any front, I don't think. Again, Greenwood's goal's good, but I am going to cut them some big time slack this week because I think when you're stung by a goal like that at blue, that shouldn't have counted anyway. That does have more of an impact on you than people will probably give them credit for,
Yeah, no, I do agree. I just think that the quality that United brought on at half time, and we could talk about. Everyone knows how good those two players are, and Rashford was probably on his game more than most. I haven't seen him play like that for a while. He was so influential down that left hand side, and I think what was the killer was what the killer was the second goal coming so quickly after the first. That's what deflated him. Had there been a 10-minute period where we got back, we had a little bit of time to get back into our stride a little bit, regain a little bit more of control, then perhaps we go on and either draw it or maybe nick a winner. But to go from 1-0 up to 2-1 down in the space of a few minutes, that kills your momentum, doesn't it? So I don't know. I just don't. I still think. I mean, Greenwood had missed a golden chance one-on-one right at the end. They had so many chances to score more goals. It could have been 5 or 6-1 in the end, or 6-5 if we'd have taken our chances. So I don't think the VAR decision really affected the result, but I can see why the players would have been deflated for that second goal. But I still think United probably had enough quality in that second half to beat us, even if that didn't.
Maybe.
And that finish from Pogba is class as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's what I think. It's almost a shame because it overshadowed it. If that had just gone in, the ball was in play and he'd hit that. Even watching it, I was like, "Oh Jesus, what a hit!"
Yeah, I said it watching on my sofa. I was like, "Wow, what goal!"
Greenwood's one was nice as well. Again, Rashford's obviously he's got stacks of space. But right, James, look, before we move on, we did ask the We Are West Ham listeners as usual. I don't know if you've got the poll up in front of you as well for any comments, but I've got some results earlier, and the results surprised me, to be honest. So we simply asked our listeners earlier on, or our followers on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham, what annoyed you most about West Ham's defeat to Manchester United on Saturday? Nice and simple. And the options were VAR, missed chances, Sebastian Haller, or throwing away a lead again, because we threw away most points from winning positions, definitely in the Premier League. And Tom informs me that it may be in the whole of Europe last season. So those were the options given. VAR got 16% of the vote, even though I voted VAR. That's the thing that annoyed me the most, 16%. Sebastian Haller got just 3%, throwing away a lead again, got 12%, and an absolute landslide with 69% of the votes. And there was hundreds of votes on this one this afternoon, was the missed chances, 69% of people there. Jonesy, I'll put Haller in. I don't know if you got any comments under the bottom of that, have you?
I think it's worth saying that the Haller one, his miss, right? Surely, because I don't think he had a bad game. I thought,
mate, the second half.
I mean, the second half he was missing, but a lot of the players were missing after Pogba scored and Greenwood scored, and we kind of fell apart. And we were then sitting back and struggling. But you can't have a lone striker up front, but then be under pressure and him. He's not going to make an impact. But
no, but mate, you can jump for headers.
You can jump. Yeah.
I know you want to move on.
He does get lazy, and I completely agree. But
confidence and all that sort of thing's fine, but you can jump for headers and even just going for 50-50s with a defender with a similar amount of vigour as the defender is. I know he's short on confidence. I get that, but not honestly in the lot because it was down our end, so I was seeing a lot of it close quarters. Just not jumping for headers or half-arsing it. I was honestly. I'm not the confidence thing I get, and I don't want to berate him for that, and I don't think too many people should. But I can understand, especially after seeing it in the flesh on Saturday, why people get infuriated with him, because that comes for free, doesn't it? Mark Noble said it loads of times before. The effort side of things comes for nothing. Jumping for headers, putting yourself about a bit, and just generally looking like you're bothered about trying to get the team back in the game. Then I thought, well, get off. Then you might as well not be on.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you, mate. And we have had one comment on the poll. Tom Toll, the regular listener of ours, he said, I think you can wrap Haller and missed chances in one and put a pretty bow on it. It's frustrating to see things not go our way, but we've had a lot of luck recently, so we can't be too disheartened. Also, Man United didn't win the game. Fernandes did. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. Really.
And Rashford and Paul.
Yeah, I thought Rashford was probably better than Fernandes on the night, to be fair. But I get the point. Yeah,
Tom is right about luck as well. I do sort of think that we've faced 3 penalties in the last 4 games before United or whatever it was. Had 2 of them missed. If they'd both gone in, which is perfectly reasonable to expect, we would have been 4 points down going into the game. So yeah, I do buy Tom's comment there about the luck. Saeed Benrahma, Jonesy, you've put time to start ? In notes before the show. Just quickly before we wrap up and go on to the Betway charity bet section. What are you saying?
I really think that against Leeds on Friday night, he's got to start. When he came off the bench the other night against United, I thought he looked good. He looked creative. He looked like he wanted to go forward. He's got a bit of flair about him, which I love. He has got that sort of Payet-ish aura about him. And I think, it's about time we started seeing him from the start. And given, Fornals had a really, really strong start to the season. We all know that, he deserved to keep his place when Benrahma arrived. But, he wasn't great the other night, Fornals. I thought he was one of our worst players on the pitch, plus the two chances that he missed. That would be playing on David Moyes' mind, and I just think he's got 2 assists already, and I don't think he's even played an hour's worth of football for us. So chuck him in from the start and see what you can do. Some people might say that Leeds away might not be the game for him, given the way that Leeds play, but I'd just chuck him in there. He can create something out of nothing. We've already seen that, and it just gives us that something a little bit extra going forward, particularly with Haller up top. Doesn't move about a lot. Benrahma can pick him out, can't he? So I want to see him start.
Yeah, I think Moyes is a bit concerned about the work rate, isn't he? Just one thing, Jonesy. I obviously don't want to give it too much energy, really, but reports emerged after the game. Very low-level reports. I think one particularly well-followed account on Twitter made a bit of a scene about it. Reports suggesting that West Ham fans booed during the players kneeling before the game. First of all, straight up, I was there. I didn't hear anything. Again, I wasn't sitting in among the ticketed fans where some of the video footage purporting to show boos came from. Sam in Seoul Football London, friend of the show, he tweeted saying that he didn't hear anything. A few other mainstream journalists tweeted that. Of course, they would have also been sat in the West stand. I don't know what the footage was like on the TV. I can only say what I heard, and I heard no booing. It went a little bit quieter. There was some people still sort of chanting and talking or whatever. It was not drastically different to in the build up to a normal kickoff or in the moments just before. I say normal, but or a kickoff of seasons past where there was no players kneeling. Was it any different on the telly?
Well, I mean, I was interested in that section more than I would normally be, given what happened earlier in the day with Millwall. And I was like, come on, like, I really hope we don't mess this one up. And I didn't hear anything. Even the replays that people of the same footage that people have been putting on Twitter accusing of them being booing, still can't hear it, even though they're saying, look, here, you can hear it. I think what they're hearing is "Come on, you Irons," and thinking the "you" is a boo. Maybe, I don't know. It might come through a little bit differently on the TV. But see, I know you and Tom were there. Both said no booing. I knew two people in the press box. Both said no booing. The Express ran a story saying there was booing, and then they swiftly deleted it, which says a lot.
Yeah, I mean that tells you it
says a lot, doesn't it? And you know that Man United, he's got a big following. A Man United influencer tweeted saying that our West Ham fans booed Black Lives Matter, and then 3 black players scored. I love this game and stuff like that. He's got over 100,000 followers. And I thought it's a very, very. He wasn't there. He couldn't have been there because he's not. They had no away fans, and he wouldn't have been in the press box. And I just thought it's a very weird thing to lie about.
Just undermines the whole cause, doesn't it?
Exactly, particularly to over 100,000 followers. When you've got 100,000 followers on Twitter, you have a level of responsibility. I think
live in a post-truth world almost, don't we?
I get that, but it's a very, very dangerous.
I agree, totally.
Route to go down and start basically accusing, and the way he worded his tweet, he was accusing the entire fan base of being racist in that one moment, even though there were only 2,000 fans in the ground. And it was a little bit like, hang on, mate, like just be careful what you're saying here. And he then said, I've annoyed a lot of people. If I'm proven to be wrong, I'll delete my tweet. And then he ended up deleting his tweet. I checked this morning and he has deleted it.
Oh, he has? Well, good. I'd say good.
Declan Rice commented underneath someone accusing West Ham fans of booing on Instagram and said, that was on the pitch. I didn't hear any booing. And when you've got a player that was on the middle of the pitch at the time saying there wasn't any booing, then you've got a non-story. So it's disappointing that the likes of the Express and
people are just desperate to jump on these things because the Millwall stuff was a big story, wasn't it?
It was a big story.
The Millwall stuff was a big story, and rightfully so. That's what I mean. Right? If it happens, rightfully so, it should be a big story.
But when you start lying about it, you start brushing people with that sort of brush, and it's not.
Then no one believes things when it's true, do they?
Exactly.
No one believes the Millwall story. Then
it's a dangerous game to go down, and it's just really disappointing that. There are still people out there having read those reports, having seen those tweets, still believe that happened the other night at West Ham. And that's disappointing because it didn't happen. West Ham fans behaved as anyone should behave, when observing something like that, and should continue to behave. And for some reason, people felt the need to lie about it. And it's really annoyed me, to be fair, because, we've had our fair share of problems with our fans in the past, minority, which has tarnished the club's reputation, so the fan base's reputation. The last thing we needed is a load of made up rumours about something that never happened to continue that. But that's all I've got to say on it, and I'm just really, really glad that it didn't happen and it was all just fake news. Yeah,
you're just. I think that'll. People and like you see with the Express or whatever, desperate for the clout, and if it did happen then it's exposure and they want the Twitter followers and likes and all that sort of stuff. And there's an element of responsibility, or you'd hope, wouldn't there? You'd hope there was an element of responsibility, but you also, I think, in the day and age we live in these days, it falls on the user and the anyone listening to these podcasts or anyone who goes on Twitter every day. It falls on each individual to double check these things and treble check these things. And hopefully, if someone's seen what that guy's tweeted and looked elsewhere, they're going, no, he's talking out of his backside. And
He had about 5,000 retweets on that tweet.
Yeah, because people want to jump on things, don't they? I know what you mean. I don't want to give it too much more energy, mate. But I can only say, from what I heard being there, Tom said the same thing, and then like you said, the guys in the press box said no. So obviously, if there was, then it was very, 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 very small minority. But I say there's certainly nothing from my perspective, and hopefully it carries on like that in the future. Josie, I think we've done Man United to death. Unfortunate, but we are still 8th, and you'd have taken that at the beginning of the season. We'd have snapped each other's arms off for that, wouldn't we? So Leeds coming up Friday night at Elland Road under the lights. Huge game coming. So stay with us, because next up we've got the Betway charity bets. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, and James Jones. Tom Edwards out there somewhere in the freezing cold night of Kingston or wherever it is that he's working at the moment, dreaming and wishing he was on the We Are West Ham podcast with Jonesy. If nothing else, Jonesy, to rub it in to you that me and Tom were fortunate enough to get to go to the game on Saturday night. And we did miss you. When I texted you that, Tom insisted on having a photo taken with me. I got to meet his girlfriend for the first time. He got to meet my dad and my mum. I took my parents along because it was all, you had to be as part of the same household. So my mum got to go for the first time since we went to West Ham 0, Walsall 0 in 2004 when Jimmy Walker had a blinder for the Saddlers. But it was the worst game of football I've ever been to in my life. So yeah, lovely to get to bring my family along. Wonderful to see Tom there as well. He insisted on a picture, and when I texted you and said we miss you, I actually meant it. But you did you not take it that way?
Well, no, I replied and said, "What's the atmosphere like, chaps?" And it took you like 3 hours to reply. And I was like, to the point where I'd woken up the following morning, just quickly check WhatsApp. Have the boys replied yet? And yeah, you had about 2 or 3 hours later, and it was I can't even remember what you said, but it was completely like unrelated to what I'd asked.
I think I said something like frosty. Because I can't remember what it was. It probably wasn't that funny, but yeah.
But yeah, I was jealous. But I'm glad you missed me.
Yeah, we did loads, mate. Loads. Yeah, Tom's missus not great at taking photos, though. I must admit, she next time we'll have to make sure someone who knows their way around an iPhone if the three of us ever get to go to a game together this season. Lads, not lads, I'm used to saying that. Jonesy, Betway charity bets last week. Close. I think Tom was the closest one. He had West Ham to win, both teams to score, and Thomas Souček goal. Obviously, both teams did score, and Thomas Souček got off the mark in the first half. West Ham did not win, unfortunately. I had West Ham to win, Ogbonna goal anytime both teams to score. Thought I'd double down on my bet from the week before. I don't even think Ogbonna got near the halfway line, let alone the opposition penalty box. And you had West Ham to win, both teams to score, and Cresswell to score as well. Yeah, that didn't really pay off either, did it?
There was a moment in the second half where we got a free kick. I think we were 2-1 down at this point, and we got a free kick, and Cresswell took it, and I think it might have hit the wall or straight at Henderson. But while it was lining up, I was dreaming of, okay, this is it. He's going to score it, and then we're going to get a late winner, and I'm going to win my bet, and it's going to be brilliant. And
thousands of pounds again, yeah.
Yeah, and then just nah.
Absolutely not. No. So yeah, unlucky. I think we'd all got full of ourselves after the week before at Villa and went with West Ham win. So they let us down. But after the week before, when we got that 1,400 odd quid between me and Tom, thanks to my Ogbonna £1,250 that came in after the Villa game, we were all a bit confident, weren't we, James? We've drawn it. We've sort of withdrawn into ourselves a little bit this week. Can you let us know, or let the listeners know, what you and Tom have gone for in your Betway charity bet for the Leeds game this weekend?
So Tom's gone for a draw, which fair enough. Both teams to score and Ben Rama to score. So I think he's also along the mindset that Ben Rama should probably start and might be expected to start.
He was buzzing when he came on
Yeah,
Saturday.
I bet
Absolutely
he
loving
was.
it.
Loves
Such a
it. He's the
fanboy.
biggest fan, isn't he? I've gone for both teams to score over 9.5 corners and over 3.5 goals. I see there being a lot of goals on Friday night. I really do. And with that, will be a lot of corners. I think both sides are going to be, relatively decent going forward. We've already shown that we can create chances. Leeds, everyone knows what Leeds are about under Bielsa. They're going to cause us problems. And I just think there's going to be goals. It's going to be a bit of a high-scoring game.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. We'll chat to Darren Harper, or I caught up with Darren Harper, one of the presenters for the LS11 Leeds podcast earlier on today to have a chat about the game. So we'll hear what he's got to say next up on that. I've gone for, I know. I like
You went for a
Tom's
bit of a
thinking.
mental one and Betway said no, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I did at first. So this is, I thought, I'm trying to get a bit creative with these bets. At first, I went West Ham to score first, more than 2.5 goals and more than 40 throw-ins, because I did a bit of research. I just thought something a bit different. I thought it doesn't really matter how the game goes, does it? I've never seen throw-ins on any betting website, to be fair. Chad from Betway unfortunately came back and said he can't do throw-in, so I had to change it up a bit. I tried to get, can one of the goals be a header in there? He said no on that one. So I just went, I'll go West Ham to score first, more than 2.5 goals and less than 4.5 cards in the game. That's come from being scarred at Sheffield United. And I think that was the only thing I needed to win my bet that week, was for both teams to get at least one player booked. And no one got booked. No one even got close to getting booked. Old Erzan Alioski, he likes a booking. But West Ham, we've got quite a mellow team this year. We haven't got a load of nutters who are going to go around kicking people up in the air. So less than 4.5 total cards in the game from me. As always, you can go and back our selections on the Betway bet under the pre-built bet selection on the Betway app or website. Obviously, Betway give us £50 each, me, James and Tom, each week to put on a bet, a charity bet, and the winnings of any of those go to the 3 charities that me, James and Tom are playing for. I am playing for the Bobby Moore Fund, James, of course, for the DT38 Dylan Tombides Foundation, and Tom Edwards for Isla's fight, which is Isla Caton's fight against neuroblastoma. So some good work done by me and the lads so far this season. We're into Betway, have agreed to double anything we win at the end of the season, Jonesy, haven't we? So can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, but across all 3 charities, we've already raised in excess of about £3,000, haven't we? So that 10 games into the season, we are absolutely delighted with. So if we can keep on at this rate, we could be there or thereabouts, 10 grand or whatever by the end of the season for those 3 West Ham charities, which would be absolutely wonderful, would it not?
Yeah, no,
but,
I think I think it is about £3,000 all in if you include the Betway match in it, and that's not a bad start for the first 10 weeks, is it? So I'm just a little bit conscious that I need to boost my little bit up for the DT38 Foundation. But we've got plenty more weeks to go, and I fancy getting a big one in like you did as well. I can see it coming.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, look, we'll have a chat with, or you'll hear our chat with Darren Harper coming up next. We'll go into what he thinks is going to happen on Friday. And Jonesy, we'll listen to hear what Darren from the LS11 podcast said to me, and then we'll have a little chat about how we think the Leeds game is going to go on Friday, because I, for one, am excited to see them back in the Premier League and for us to be playing against what I call a proper football club, rather than someone like Wigan or Bolton. So stay with us, because it's the opposition view next. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast, and the Hammers go to Leeds on Friday night. What a game that's going to be. Remember the last time going head-to-head with Leeds in the Championship? I think Danny Collins, scored an equaliser right at the death in a 1-1 head-to-head when we were in the Championship. Tom did it on Name That Game a few weeks ago, of course. But Leeds have been, I would say, erratic this season, 14th in the table at the moment. I'm delighted to say, joining us to discuss is Darren Harper, one of the hosts of the LS11 podcast. Darren, great to see you. First of all, do you think erratic is a fair description by me from Leeds form? Beating Everton away last week, excellent result. Drawing 0-0 at home with Arsenal. Oh, losing 4-1 to Crystal Palace. Oh, losing 4-1 to Leicester. How have you found it?
Let's say it's been a wild ride so far, which I think all Leeds fans all knew it was going to be in the Premier League. I think what they're happy about. Erratic's an interesting term for it because Leeds have played exactly the same way in pretty much every single game, and that's what they do. And sometimes it's worked, and sometimes it hasn't worked. And you can sort of see the managers that have maybe sort of like worked out how to sort of like play Leeds because of that sort of like high press and the fast movement, and certainly like working up the wing. So erratic's an interesting term for it. It's been highly enjoyable. I think every Leeds fan, obviously after being 16 years away from the Premier League, if you had offered them at this point in the season that you're 14th in the table and you just come off the back of really 3 very, very difficult games and you've got 4 points out of them, then I think most of them would probably like snap their hands off at the moment. But it's been a fun ride so far, and looking forward to this one on Friday.
Yeah, maybe I'll change that to erratic results then, for sure. Same sort of playing system. I think football fans quite that approach, don't they? With, we saw it on the first game of the season against Liverpool where it was like 23-19 or whatever the game finished in the end at Anfield, and everyone thought, here we go, this is lovely. And I remember thinking at the time, well, I've heard this before. You've heard it from Norwich, and you've heard, we love it when teams come out and attack the Premier League. And I remember, just because I'm a bit of a cynical bloke anyway, thinking, well, yeah, they're saying that, but when they're getting hammered 6-0 most weeks by teams they should be beating because they can't firm things up at the back, they'll be sorry then. That hasn't really been the case, is it? I mean, you have had a couple of hide-ins on those, the sort of worst results, to focus on those briefly. You lost 4-1 to Palace and 4-1 to Leicester at the beginning of November in 2 consecutive games. What's the difference between that game and then when you go and turn Everton over at Everton and get a 0-0 at home to Arsenal, which you should have won?
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it, really? I think that's the beauty of Leeds United is you know how Bielsa's going to set a team up, and he very rarely changes things, even after a loss. He very rarely tweaks the squad too much and tweaks the starting lineup. So it's always been sort of like quite interesting to see, how they sort of like bounce back. And they always really do, after a disappointing loss, they do bounce back. But Bielsa's one of those managers that's always going to put faith in that sort of like starting 11. You look at, what's been happening over the previous weeks, and I think some teams, as I said, sort of like before, have sort of worked out how to sort of like use the high press against Leeds, and there's create sort of space behind them. So there is, and Leeds aren't the best at defending at times, and if they're missing some of their normal defenders, then that can be a slight issue, I think, really, which may be a little issue this week in the West Ham game because we've got an injured Cock, so that's going to cause a slight issue, I think, on Friday, but. I think, and then you look at like the Arsenal game, you look at like the Everton game, and he's not changing it. It's the same team pretty much. That's maybe like 1 or 2 changes due to injuries. I think Calvin Phillips was a massive miss during some of those games that we had some poor results against, and he really does dictate everything. That he's sort of Bielsa on the pitch because he dictates everything that goes on, makes that team tick. He's that like solid wall in front of that defence. So I think with him, they're much more of a force, I think, than without him. And I think it's like you say, there doesn't seem to be any fear. I think Leeds will go out and they're going to lose some, and they're going to lose some 4-1, and they're going to lose some 3-0. But they are going to go at teams at an absolute massive pace, and they will get chances. And sometimes they'll go in and sometimes they won't. Sometimes they get dodgy VAR decisions where like an armpit's offside. These things will happen. But it's Premier League, and I think most Leeds fans are just relishing it every single week anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Calvin Phillips, of course, the poor man's Declan Rice in midfield. He managed to worm his way into the England team as well. Obviously, there were questions raised at first when he wormed his way in, because he was still in the Championship, I believe, when he first broke into the squad.
That's right.
People saying, well, what are they doing that for? A Championship player, obviously a Premier League player now, and conducting himself quite well nicely. Is there one man? Would it be Phillips, or is there one man who is key to everything good Leeds do? Because, if a Declan Rice or a Mikel Antonio drops out of West Ham's team, we're a considerably poorer starting 11. The Leeds have the one or two key players like that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Phillips is probably a very, very key player. And we've seen that when he's not in the team, Leeds are still good, but I think they play so much better when they've got him in the team. But, there's a number of players, and he's not spent vast amounts of money over the course of this last year. I mean, pretty much the team that he took over, Marcelo Bielsa from Paul Heckingbottom, he didn't put anyone really into the team. He just added a couple of players here and there and turned them into sort of Championship winning. So he's obviously brought in Rodrigo and Rafinha during the summer, and we've seen Diego Llorente come in and Robin Koch. He's obviously out. Llorente's just come back off of injury as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether he's still on the bench ahead of this one, and whether he uses Cooper and Ayling in central defence. So it'll be interesting to see how he sort of like tweaks that, and whether he just goes with Llorente. Knowing Bielsa, Llorente will be on the bench and he'll come on if things are struggling during it. But Phillips is definitely a key man, I think, for Leeds United. And he certainly seems to drive everything. But there is so much pace and so much heart in that team with Matthijs Klich, who was nowhere really before Bielsa came along and has turned him into sort of one of the, Bielsa says he could walk into any team in the world, which, I'm not 100% sure about that, but he is. He's a fabulous player. He really is. And, you combine that with someone like Jack Harrison on loan from Man City, who's been there 3 seasons now and has just got better and better and better. And has certainly done his stock no problems at all with Man City, because you'd think it'd be worth a lot more now after he's been playing under Bielsa for the last 3 years. And then you can chuck in, a little bit of a wild card like Gianni Alioski, who can certainly upset players. And is excellent at that, the mad Macedonian. And then up front, of course, Patrick Bamford. Who would have thought Patrick Bamford certainly a lot of Leeds fans would not have thought Patrick Bamford would have done so well in the Premier League. And there was a lot of worries about, whether or not Leeds have got enough firepower up front to really contend and stay in the Premier League. But look at Bamford. He is, firing like fantastic. He's up in the top scoring charts of the Premier League and in Europe this season, which is, for a lot of Leeds fans, last season and season before, there was a lot of Bamford bashing going on because he had a lot of chances, wasn't he putting them in. But you look at his work rate through the whole of the game, and it's sort of like second to none. Even if he's not scoring, that guy is running left. He's running all over the place. And, again, we sort of talk cliches, but he's got an amazing engine. But I think that the fitness and the pace that Bielsa has instilled into that team goes through absolutely every one of them. They all know what they need to do. They all know their jobs. They'll give anybody a good game on their day, definitely.
Yeah, I'm still stubbornly refusing to put Patrick Bamford in my fantasy team, despite all the stats and all of his performances advising me against it. I've got too big of an ego to accept that I was wrong at the beginning of the season. And there's no way a player like Patrick Bamford, who couldn't hit a barn door for Middlesbrough, and he just seemed like the typical Championship journeyman. And I thought, that's another one, putting him in and trying to compete in the Premier League with Patrick Bamford. even if you can defend, you're not going to score like you said. You won't score enough. But fair play to him. I admire his his ability. And I was saying it about David Moyes has done it at West Ham. Just comes in, sort of ignoring the naysayers, really, getting his head down and doing the work that he believes he can do. And then just waiting for the positive reaction and people's minds to change after that. Fair play to Patrick Bamford this season. I think Leeds fans, obviously, but I don't think any football fans across the land, really, and rightfully so. You can't insult people for looking at someone's track record and then coming to the conclusion, I don't think that's going to work. At the beginning of the season, the bizarre take or the weird take would have been, Patrick Bamford's going to be really good, wouldn't it? But how do you see the game going, sort of style of play at the weekend? Because we mentioned some of those poorer results there, Palace and Leicester. Leicester in particular are a counter-attacking team. I know your game against Arsenal was changed by Pepe's red card when he got involved in that fracas with Alioski, as you mentioned there. West Ham are a team this season who have been happy to sit back and then try and hit teams on the counter-attack. It suits our players, the playing group we've got. It suits them better. And David Moyes has found out the hard way after a thumping by Newcastle at home on the first day of the season that, we can't play forward at the back and try and take games to teams because we're not good enough at it. Do you think that counter-attacking style is one that Leeds have struggled against more so this season, especially being at home? You'd perhaps be expected to have a bit more of the ball. West Ham will be even more happy than they usually are to sit back and have 35, 40% possession and then try and use Bowen, Fornals and probably not going to be Antonio, but Haller going forward to break them down.
There's goals written all over this, isn't there? So, Leeds will come out sort of hammer and tongs. So that's the sad thing is obviously there's not going to be 35,000 fans watching it, or even 2,000, because I think if West Ham sit back, Leeds love having possession, and their possession stats are staggering across not just in the Premier League but also in the last couple of seasons under Bielsa in the Championship. That's not always made it's not always turned into sort of 3 points for Leeds, and they have a lot of chances. Sometimes those chances aren't put away, but we always used to say, certainly during one of the Championship seasons, God, one of these days a team is going to get an absolute gubbing from Leeds with all these bloody chances go in. But so I think there will be chances for Leeds on Friday. I think there's no doubt about that. And the possession, hitting them on the break, especially with maybe a slightly changed defence for Leeds. I think they've been shown to be maybe a little bit weak at some set pieces. I think Chelsea sort of showed that up. Chelsea, I think, and a lot of Leeds fans, I think, over the last, through gritted teeth, have said that Chelsea were definitely 100% the best team they've played so far this season, and that showed. Probably 3-1 flattered Chelsea a little bit. 2-1 probably would have been probably more of a fair result, but there's going to be goals in this one. I think West Ham are going to get chances certainly on the break, and whether or not a slightly rejigged defence is going to be able to cope with that. We'll wait and see. But if anybody's got money on 0-0, they may as well just pack up and go home, because I can't. If that is 0-0 on Friday, I would eat my hat. I don't know. I don't even own a hat, but
if you did, you would eat it.
If I did, I would eat it.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't. Perhaps not 0-0. I don't think it'll be 0-0. I just think I know we conceded 3 at United at the weekend, but we all just lost our heads a bit after Dean Henderson's clearance grazed my nose in the stands before swinging back into play, and the linesman wasn't even looking, and VAR couldn't use any basic technology to decide that it was out of play. And then after that, I think it affected us a bit. We were a bit all over the place, not sure whether to go for the win or not. Left big gaps in behind. Mason Greenwood's goal was outstanding, and Rashford just took advantage of loads and loads of space that he had. West Ham can defend very well. We've proved that on occasion this season, certainly in recent games before that United game. So I wouldn't be surprised if we limited Leeds to 1. If you said to me it'd be 1-1 now, I wouldn't be shocked at all, because it looks like we're going to have Sebastian Haller up front rather than Michail Antonio. And I mean, I've been frustrated with Haller for most of the season anyway. Watch him in the flesh on the weekend. He did all right in the first half, and then the second half, it was embarrassing. I'm always a bit loath to go in two-footed on players, because you always wonder whether there's things going on, and sometimes if they're low on confidence, whatever. But jumping for headers, you don't need to be confident to do that, do you? When you're a 6'4" centre forward, you don't need to have confidence for that, or to throw yourself into a 50-50 challenge with at least as much vigour as your opponent. You don't need confidence for those things. I understand if the ball's not quite dropping for him, or he's hit a few wider at the post and it's not going in. So I think we are blunter up front without Michail Antonio in the team. He looks like he's going to be out for a month. So, if a 1-1, I wouldn't be surprised at either, but I wouldn't be surprised with a 3-3. Just before we let you go, Darren, what do you say on the score prediction front? We always do them. We'll do ours in due course in the episode, but just wondering what you have the game billed as Friday night, Elland Road, 8 o'clock kickoff.
Okay, well, we've got three people on the podcast. So we've got Ryan, who's one of my co-hosts. He went for 2-1. Ben
to
Parker,
Leeds.
to Leeds.
Darren, you have to be clarifying here.
He went 2-1 to Leeds. Ben Parker, former Leeds United, he went 1-0 Leeds. And I went, because I'm not very good at score predictions, 16-0 to Leeds. So, in other words, there's going to be goals.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, Darren, look, thanks very much for joining us. Certainly promises to be an excellent game. And just one final note, I think from my point of view, it's nice to be playing Leeds in the Premier League again. I've always been an advocate of having the big teams in the Premier League. I'd much rather have a Leeds or an Aston Villa in the Premier League than a Wigan or a Bolton or any sort of those type teams any day of the week. And although, like you said, it would be brilliant to be going back to Elland Road, it was a great occasion when we played each other in the Championship last time. I'm really looking forward to having Leeds back again, and I'm sure it's sort of the same sort of feelings for you guys.
Yeah, no, it's just fantastic. I think for all these fans, just to be, seeing their team pitting their wits against, the best in the land. I think now, the Championships, it's a great league. The Championships, no doubt about that. It's very competitive, but it's so nice to be out of it and not Tuesday, Saturday, and just sort of like focusing and seeing, the last few games and seeing it's Everton, it's Arsenal, it's Chelsea, it's West Ham now. And you look at the next sort of few coming up, and then you got that other team over the other side of the Pennines to come. So really, really quite exciting. And I mean, the downside is, the Leeds fans haven't been able to see their team in the Premier League in the flesh yet, which is the real shame. And let's hope that fans are back in soon, and let's really hope Leeds stay in the Premier League so we can have a full capacity ground, 35,000 from September or October next year. So that's the hope.
So Darren Harper there from the LS11 Leeds United podcast. Great stuff. Catching up with Darren earlier today on Tuesday. He's predicting goals. Jonesy, you're predicting goals. I've just got a funny feeling that it might not be as free-flowing as we think. West Ham are okay at the back, aren't we? I know the 3-1 against United seems, that's not very good. But we got stung, didn't we? We were a bit jaded. And then opened up. There's reasons why that happened. I think we feel more confident to go away to places and sit back and be more compact anyway. There's not going to be any West Ham fans urging them forward, etc., etc. I know I've gone for more with my Betway selection this week, but I would not be stunned at all if it was a 1-1, because I think we can defend well. I know they're good going forward, but we are good defending well. We've got a goal in us as well. I really don't know, as I've said it most weeks this season, but I don't know what way it's going to go. You feel a bit more strongly about it than me?
No, I mean, it's difficult. It's a difficult one to call because we know the style of play that Leeds have under Bielsa, and that's what worries me a little bit. It's just whether we can handle their sort of aggressive pressing style. But then Liverpool play a very similar way, and we did all right against them at Anfield. So if anything, that's proof that we can potentially handle it. But they just do it with a little bit more intensity, I think, and it's just whether
Liverpool.
Yeah, I think they do. I think Bielsa just gets them running about like headless chickens, doesn't he? But it works. It's
well,
mad.
maybe.
But I watched them the other night against Chelsea and the week before against Everton.
Arsenal. Yeah.
And they were really, really good against Everton. I thought they were superb, and they won that game 1-0. And I don't know. I've got this horrible feeling that we're gonna struggle against them. But there will be goals, I think, for both teams. I think we will have our moments, as we've already established. We can create chances, particularly if we have more creative players on the pitch. One thing that I think might help us is their midfielder, Robert Koch. Wonderful name. He's
Robin Koch, isn't it? Is
it
it
might
Robin?
be Robin Koch. Koch, Robin Koch, same difference. He's got a knee injury, so I think he's having knee surgery, so he's out the game, and he's a really good player for them. So
that must have been what Darren meant when he said they've got an injured Cock.
Yeah, it's probably
that would be it. Finally making a little bit more sense. Yeah, I thought he was just being a bit over familiar, to be honest.
No, that's probably what he meant. It's probably what he meant. Unless he might be flirting.
Shall I text him and ask just in case?
Yeah, might be an idea. Yeah. But he's a really key player for them, and he's going to be out for the next few months. So it'll be interesting to see how they react to that. And hopefully we can try and exploit that in midfield and take advantage of it. But I don't know. It's a difficult one to call this week because although we know, as I said before, we know Leeds' style, we know what they're like under Bielsa. They're almost a kind of completely sort of different entity in the Premier League because we haven't seen them in the Premier League for 16 years. Bielsa's a revelation as a manager. And they've kind of been unpredictable so far since they've come back, almost like 4-3 at Anfield against Liverpool on opening weekend, beating the likes of Everton, getting battered by Palace.
Yeah, battered by Leicester, didn't they?
Battered by Leicester, and it's like, what
0-0
Leeds are
with
going to turn
Arsenal.
up. So that's why we're always like that. We don't really know what West Ham are going to turn up between halves, do we? Really, we saw that at the weekend. So I don't know. It's a difficult one, but quite looking forward to it. Actually, quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am big time, and I say, repeat it again. It's just great for me to see Leeds back in the Premier League. I'm sure football fans up and down the country, West Ham fans listening to this podcast have played that game with their mates about what would be their ideal Premier League. If the Premier League went like NFL style next year and there would be no relegations forever, it would just be the same 20 teams. Who would you want in it? I've played that game plenty of times before. Always putting teams like Leeds in there, aren't you? Leeds, you want them. You don't want Wigans and Boltons and Blackburns. Blackburn. Well, actually, no. Blackburn do get in mind because they won it before, so I think that gives them a bit of rite of passage. But you know what I mean? Leeds are a proper football club, aren't they? With some proper fans, and like the atmospheres are great. They always fill out away ends. Their stadium's good. I just think, obviously, it's a shame. No fans are going to be in this week. Just quickly on that, James. How bored are you of hearing commentators and pundits preface every sentence with, it's a shame fans aren't in here, or they make a really good point about the game and then they go, it's just a shame fans aren't in here. So come on, mate. Yeah. Come on. Just stop it. Please stop it. It's so annoying.
Yeah, we know it's a shame. Yeah.
Exactly.
It was a shame back in July and it's still a shame now. We know you're there and we're not. Like, just stop it.
Yeah. Well, that's what people listening are going to be saying about me this week, no doubt. Josie, score prediction. As always, we can't finish the opposition views segment without giving a score prediction. Darren, pretty confident Leeds are going to win, as is everyone else on the LS11 podcast, but we're used to that during our opposition views on the We Are West Ham podcast. So, Jonesy, tell me, what is the score going to be Friday night under the lights at Elland Road?
Well, I'm conscious that I've gone for over 3.5 goals in my Betway charity bet. So I'm going to stick with that. And I'm going to say 3-1 West Ham.
3-1 West Ham. Full of confidence, James Jones there. Didn't get anything from Tom this afternoon. Unfortunately, we've heard what his Betway bet selection is. He's gone draw, both teams to score and Benrahma to score. But I'm going to go for a Desmond. I fancy it'll be a draw. We will deserve. We haven't had a draw, it seems, for quite a while. So yeah, I fancy a Desmond with Leeds on Friday night. That'll be some game. Looking forward to that on the telly. But stay with us, because next up we've got the West Ham women's segment. Josie, that is nearly it for this week's show. We have still got the Fantasy Premier League section coming up, so don't worry about that. I know you've been looking forward to it all evening, but as we always do, we wrap up with the last proper segment of the evening, which is, of course, the West Ham women, narrowly defeated 3-2 by Chelsea in the WSL at the weekend. There was huge concern before, James. It's a bit of a tumultuous time for the West Ham women at the moment. Still no manager after Matt Beard and the club parted company a few weeks ago. Now, Billy Stewart, it was the interim manager who took charge of the girls at the weekend. And to be quite honest, Chelsea went 1-0 up. Sam Kerr got a hat-trick for Chelsea. All three of them were very good goals, to be quite honest. But West Ham gave them a good fight. Got back to 1-1, went 1-0 down, got back to 1-1. Bit annoying for the first goal. Gilly Flaherty caught flat-footed, lets Kerr go. She puts the ball in. A massive miss by Rachel Daly when the scores were still 1-0 to Chelsea. But then an absolutely wonderful run by Adriana Leon to cross for Daly to make it 1-1, and it was looking all right. Chelsea, before the game, to be quite honest, mate, it was pretty doom and gloom, wasn't it? And it was one of those you felt a bit like before that Arsenal game where they got absolutely thumped 9. You sort of thought, if we can just get away with this with a 4-0 defeat, you kind of take it, wouldn't you? But a much better showing in the end.
Yeah, much better showing. And you're right, the build up to this, because they had, a 2 or 3 week break between league fixtures. I know they had that game with 4-0 win against Charlton in the cup in between, but it's been a big break in between league games. And, we've been talking about this one for the last couple of weeks, saying, this is a game that they probably don't want to face anyway, let alone one without a manager. And they put up a good fight, 3-2. Okay, it was, if you look at the stats, Chelsea did dominate. Amazingly, they had 26 shots on goal to our 9, but it's the goals that count, isn't it? And although Chelsea did come away with the 3 points, I thought they gave a good account of themselves, West Ham, and if they can play like that every week, they won't be anywhere near the bottom. They won't be spoken about in any relegation chat or anything like that, or they'll be mid-table at best. So, or at worst, shall I say? So it's there's a lot of positives to take. It's just whether they can build on that now, and obviously with Bristol City coming up this weekend, perfect chance to get another win under their belts.
That is huge, isn't it? Bristol City away on the 13th of December. Bristol City currently bottom of the WSL, just the one team that get relegated. They're bottom on 2 points. Aston Villa 11th on 3 and West Ham 10th on 4. Yeah, it is strange, Jonesy. Like I say, obviously with just the one team going down, you'd hope that Bristol City, who haven't shown a lot at all this season really, will be bad enough to go down, don't you, instead of the girls. But I mean, it's the manager situation, really, isn't it? You don't know how much pre-planning there was before Matt Beard's departure. You got the feeling that it was all quite on the hop. I've heard a couple of names bumping around from some of Isabel Barker. I've been in touch with her, sports journalist, WSL expert from The Sun, who's been on the podcast a couple of times now, friend of the show. Been chatting to her about it. Any rumblings? What can you tell me? What can you tell me? A few other people who, might be a bit closer to the situation than we would be, James, and still seems it's all gone a little bit quiet, really. I don't know. starting to feel a little bit concerning. On one hand, you think, you know what, if they're taking their time, fair play. That's what you want, isn't it? Billy Stewart, who, like I say, the interim boss, obviously did a good job at the weekend. The girls were certainly playing for him. It was nice to see, certainly for West Ham's goals. Leon driving forward, Alicia Lehman as well involved in the one that made it 3-2. Positive play, driving forward, getting crosses into the box. What's your stance on it? Are you panicking because, come on, this is taking ages, hurry up? Or do you think, no, fair play, if they're going through the proper channels and thinking about this and making the right decision, then I don't mind if it rumbles on another couple of weeks?
You can look at it two ways, you know. When any team loses a manager, whether they've resigned or whether they're sacked, you know, you'd like to think not a lot of time passes between them leaving and then, you know, the new guy coming in, the new manager coming in and sort of getting their feet under the table and start working with the squad as soon as possible. But at the same time, I remember when we spoke to Isabel, I think probably I think it was a few days before they announced that Matt Beard had left. Was it Isabel that we spoke to, or was it someone else? I can't remember. It was someone else.
Yeah, we had Catherine Batt on as well from the Mail, didn't we? We had a few guests on. Ella German come on, but I think I can't remember who it was we spoke to at that time.
The question was that, you know, who is out there at the moment that could potentially replace Matt Beard if he does go, and the answer was, at the moment, no. There's no obvious candidates that who are a free agent at the moment. There's no obvious candidates out there, which means West Ham are going to have to raid another club for their manager. And there's probably no Premier League or no WSL managers that are going to want to leave their current job, who are worth nabbing to then take the West Ham women's job. So they're probably going to have to go down a couple of leagues and try and find someone there, and that's difficult. So you can look at it both ways. You know, it's frustrating that it's taken so long, but at the same time, the club may be forced into having to take so long because the options aren't there, and maybe Matt Beard's decision caught them off guard a little bit, and they're now scrambling about and trying to find someone. But if they can play like that without a manager, then take as long as you want, Jack. You know?
Yeah,
take as long as you
yeah.
need.
I mean, you never know. You know, if the girls put in a good performance against Bristol City as they're expected to, these things happen, don't they? You've seen it right at the very top of the men's game with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at United. Brought in as a caretaker, ended up doing pretty well. Yeah, you can have the job if Billy Stewart keeps going as he has been, and they get another good. And they've got to get a result against Bristol, haven't they? I mean, they're bottom of the league. They've only got a point so far this season. They've conceded 31 goals from just 7 games, I believe I'm right in saying. And, you know, their goal difference is minus 26. 7 games they've played. 2 points, sorry, not 1 point, Bristol City at the bottom of the WSL. But, I mean, conceding goals like that, you've put 2 against Chelsea, put 2 in against Chelsea at the weekend, West Ham, who, you know, Chelsea are third in the table with the second best goal difference in the league going into that game at the weekend. You've got to beat Bristol City, haven't they, James? Otherwise, this conversation takes on a bit of a different turn this time next week, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's massive because, you know, Bristol City win, they leapfrog us in the league, and in a league where only one team goes down, you know, you just got to make sure that you beat that team that's at the bottom of the league. And that team at the moment is Bristol City, and, you know, potentially Villa could be another club down there that might be in danger of going down. And
West Ham have got Villa the week after, haven't they?
Yeah, and Tottenham as well. We're only 2 points behind Tottenham with a 9. So all those clubs down there are in danger of being sucked into it. So, and we always say it's that old cliche: you got to beat the teams around you, and no more so than this weekend. Got to win, go 5 points clear of the bottom club, and gives that a little bit of cushion, and also the confidence that they need to really push on now. So fingers crossed they can get it done.
Yeah, massive 2 games coming up. Sunday afternoon, 2:00 away to Bristol City, and then the following Sunday home to Aston Villa, 20th of December at 3:00 at Dagenham. That both two huge games for the club before games against Man City, Tottenham and Arsenal. So big stuff coming up for the girls. Fingers crossed that we can give all the West Ham women fans a little bit of a pre-Christmas gift by dragging themselves away from that relegation zone in the WSL. Stay with us because we'll have some final thoughts from me and James next. The Fantasy Premier League update, and we mentioned it right at the very beginning of this podcast. You'll have heard mention of it. We've got an exclusive interview with former West Ham winger Matt Taylor, who was kind enough to give me a few moments of his time earlier this week. We tried to get him on in time for last week's podcast when we did a touching tribute, or heard from Wally Downs, former West Ham assistant manager, who gave a touching tribute to Papa Bouba Diop, who died last week. Well, Matt Taylor played with Papa during his year at West Ham and also at Portsmouth. He's known him for some time. He was understandably gutted about the news to hear about his former teammate, and he spoke to me earlier this week and to talk about Papa's death. So stay with us for all of that, because all of that's coming up next. So you are still listening to the We Are West Ham podcast, and that is pretty much it for this week. Certainly that is pretty much it from me and James. I hope you haven't missed Tom Edwards too much. Those of you who are long-term listeners to the We Are West Ham podcast, formerly the West Ham Show on Love Sport Radio, will be more than used to me and James talking, just the two of us. So hopefully it made you feel all nostalgic before Christmas. Jonesy, I mean, fantasy football, it's become a little bit of a segment at the end of each show, because we've, of course, set up the We Are West Ham podcast league where all of our listeners were able to join, and still are if they want. The code is lowercase CNY6, the letter OU, all lowercase, for fans who want to join. I think that's still open. Jonesy, I always get it wrong each week, but there's just under 500 people in the league. I think quite aptly there's 442 people in the leagues. Obviously, thousands of you who tune in and listen every week, but there's a few hundred of you getting involved, competing against each other, me and the lads on the official Fantasy Premier League website. James, you were having a breakdown last week, to be honest. There's no other way of putting it. And before we hit the record button on this segment, I was going to say, look, do you want to talk about it in private first so you can get any of the swear words off of your chest? Or if you wanted to cry and then compose yourself, you could. You had, last week, it's fair to say, you took loads of, you had an upheaval in your team, didn't you? You took a 12-point hit, and you've raked in the points this week.
So yeah, I went against everything that I believe in, my own strategy last week, and took a 12-point hit. I only ever take the odd four-point hit over the course of a season. Ever since a few years ago when I lost a mini league with all my mates in and ended up having to do a forfeit, because I used to just get a little bit happy with the -4s. Ever since then, I've won it every year since.
So for anyone who doesn't know, though, mate, that's to -4 is for when you want to transfer players out each week.
Yeah. So you get one free transfer, and then anything on top of that is -4 points per transfer. But luckily, I'd carried over a free transfer. The maximum you can carry over is 2
each week.
Each week. So I had 2 free transfers and a lot of changes to make. So I went in early as well. I've made any changes, -12, 5 changes. And the following day, they announced that Newcastle Villa was postponed, which meant I had Martinez and Watkins. Watkins, who I brought in as part of that -12, weren't going to be playing. So I was suddenly down to, and my backup keeper doesn't play. So suddenly I was like, well, I'm forced to play with 10 men this week, and I've taken a -12 hit, and I'm not taking any more hits to fix it. So straight away I was livid. I was like, when will this go right for me? When will it go right for me this season? Because I'm so upset.
Well, this week, James Jones. How on earth?
But then you say that. I got 75 points.
75, including the hit or not?
No, so it's 63 really. If you
well, you can't be writing 75 on the running order, Jonesy. I thought, fair play. How's he pulled out a 75?
my players pulled in 75 points.
That's not what
But
we're doing here.
But then 63 points went towards my overall total. But my players, my 10 players that scored points this week bought me 75 points. So it's not too bad going for 10 players on the pitch. But the frustrating thing is I brought in Walker as well. He didn't play. Like, first game he hasn't played in about 9 years. Like, Pep Guardiola thought he'd have a laugh. But then I did finally pick a captain in Kevin De Bruyne, first captain since game week 3 for me to actually do anything. So Jota started him, didn't play. So yeah, not all, not brilliant.
Not all sweetness and light.
No,
well, I was
not
impressed because I thought you'd got 75 points after your 12 points had been deducted, but 63, not quite as impressive. I did 0. I did just the one transfer in the week, so that was a free one. Kevin De Bruyne, I brought him in place of Mo Salah, I believe it was. Captained him, and I got 92 points in the week. James, I don't know what's going on. I think it could be my record haul. There was a year when I had Dimitri Payet in from the beginning of the season when no one knew who he was in his first season, where I was doing spectacularly well. I was 700th in the world or something ridiculous at one point. But yeah, brilliant week, 92 points. Just absolutely happy days. Kurt Zuma scoring for me at the back. Walker Peters with an assist. Fernandez Son. I even have Souček in my team. He scored. Captain De Bruyne. Kane and Calvert-Lewin up front. Lovely stuff. How does that leave, Jonesy, the standings between me, you and Tom, first of all, and then we'll move on to the overall We Are West Ham podcast fantasy update.
So after your week, yeah, you're still flying at the top, 676 points. That's a whole 97 points clear of Tom, who's second.
Cool.
He got 72 points this week, 579 points for him. And because of my hit, I'm now 19 points behind Tom Edwards, rather than what I would have been.
When does that come in, your hit? 'Cause it's still showing as 75 on mine.
So it comes off the overall total, not the game week total.
Oh, right, okay.
So my players got 75 points.
Yeah.
So that goes to my total, and then they take away 12 from my overall total.
Right, fair enough. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that, extending my lead even further. And what I'm most delighted with, in the We Are West Ham podcast listener league, I've moved up to 31 out of 442 listeners, which I'm pretty impressed with. Rudy Eagling, though, is still flying high at the top with his team, Moyes Mavericks. He's got 758 points. But that lead was narrowed this week by Paul Melton with his team, Hoof Hearted, in second place. He's on 728 points. But yeah, I'm flying up that We Are West Ham podcast league with my team, Cash or Souček. So quite enjoying fantasy at the moment, I must say. Well, Jonesy, look, that is it for this week. It's been a good show. Again, for those of you listening at home, of course, do stay tuned, because we've got the Matt Taylor tribute to Papa Diop at the end of this podcast episode. Great to talk to Matt. Just obviously a real shame about the circumstances under which we spoke to him. He's coaching at Tottenham now with the under-18s. So thanks again also to Simon at Spurs, who put me in touch with Matt, so we could have a chat with him last week. Jonesy, it's been a brilliant show. The listeners at home, thank you to everyone who's listening. I hope you're starting to feel a little bit festive as we can move into December. Me and the lads will probably have a week off on the episode between Christmas and New Year, but do not fear, because there'll be some Christmas content. There will be an episode on that Tuesday in between Christmas and New Year. It just won't be the format which you are used to. But do follow us on Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham. We've got an Instagram as well, so head over there. Don't forget, you can watch this show and all of our past shows, including all of our interviews with famous former West Ham faces, on YouTube. So go down to the description of this podcast where you'll find a link to our channel. Go and subscribe to that, like, review, comment, all of those sort of things. If you can leave us a review on the podcast as well, we would absolutely love that. That would certainly be a cracking Christmas present for us at We Are West Ham. That's it, Jonesy, for this week. Unfortunate not to beat Manchester United last week. Have you got any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, other than that, we're still relatively positive despite that defeat. I think, as you said earlier in the show, we're 8th, so not really a lot to grumble about. The only games we've lost, barring that opening game against Newcastle, we've only lost to United, Liverpool and Arsenal this season. And I think, there's a lot of positives to take, so many positives to take from that defeat against United, but particularly in the first half. So if we can take that into Leeds, got, Brighton and Palace coming up, West Brom coming up as well, I think. So we've got a nice little run of fixtures to come. And if we can go into 2021 easily in the top 10, then, I think we can have a good year. It just feels like something's changing at West Ham at the moment. David Moyes is working his magic, and happy days.
Absolutely. Well, stay tuned for the Matt Taylor interview, which is coming up next. West Ham were downed by the Devils last week, but can Benrahma start and burst Bielsa's bubble on Friday night at Elland Road? Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep faith, up the hammers, and we'll see you next week. So I'm delighted to say that after speaking to Wally Downs, I've also got another one of Papa's ex-teammates in West Ham star, former West Ham star, Portsmouth as well, of course, Matty Taylor. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Obviously a bit of a sad occasion, the reason we're talking to you today, but we've heard so far from other media outlets and from Wally earlier on, and hoping to hear again from some of Papa's other former West Ham teammates later on today about the man, what sort of a man he was, and a footballer. Obviously won't be putting any words in your mouth, but it's been only positive stuff about what a great guy he was. You knew him at West Ham and Portsmouth. So first of all, because we feel it's far more important what he was like as a man, what can you tell us of your experiences on that front?
First of all, it's a pleasure to be on. Obviously, it's devastating circumstances to be talking to you. But with regards to Papa as a man, my memory of him is that he was always smiling, always happy, extremely polite. And I'm sure that many people have told you this previously, but we never called him Papa, we always called him the wardrobe or Drone. So he was an infectious character, somebody that was always happy. And as you say, not touching on the football side, but looking at that, he was a very good footballer as well. But I actually met him previous to him signing for Portsmouth, probably 3 or 4 seasons before that, and Harry was manager, and he came down to where we were training at Eastleigh when I was at Portsmouth, and I just remember him scoring an outrageous goal in training, but unfortunately I don't think we were able to sign him. But very, very luckily for me, to be able to call him a teammate, because as you quite rightly say, was an exceptional man.
Yeah, absolutely. Wally Downs, who we spoke to earlier, was obviously the first team coach when you were at the club during that promotion season in 11-12, which was Papa's only year at West Ham. He was saying, often in football you always get a mixture of characters. You had that dressing room, had Kevin Nolan in, who was infectious with his personality and took over it. And he said Papa also took over the dressing room and commanded respect, but because of the way he conducted himself, he'd be offering people cups of tea, offering to clear up, just a really humble guy. Was that was that sort of your experience of him as well? Wally was saying he's very focused on doing his job for his family. That's why he was playing football. He went wherever he had to go in the world to earn money to make his family's life better in Senegal.
Most definitely, and the thing that sticks out for me was Papa was always an extremely polite man. He would do anything for anybody. And when you say about commanding the dressing room, he did that through a quiet manner, but he was exceptional at the way he conducted himself. and he led by example. So the younger players in the group, when they came into the first team environment, invariably they would look at Papa and the way that he conducted himself on a daily basis and try and follow his mantra, because I think a lot of the time footballers can, it can be overlooked, because in terms of actually we are people, but Papa was a pleasure to be with on a daily basis, and as I touched on it before, but he was always smiling, he was always happy, he was always sociable. And if you ever had an issue or ever a problem, or if there was a joke going on in the changing room, Papa was always part of that, and he was an integral part of our dressing room that season.
Absolutely. And from a football perspective, Matt, because he, echoing sentiments that the kind words that have come out about Papa after the sad news of his death. But Wally was explaining to us earlier on the podcast that from a football sense, that season, certainly at West Ham, he was sort of perhaps past his best years in England, so to speak, but he did the exact job that Wally and Sam Allardyce wanted him to do. He played 16 games in that season for West Ham, and Wally said we couldn't have asked a single thing more of him on and off the pitch. You obviously knew him at Portsmouth as well, which many would suggest was perhaps the peak of his powers in English football. Obviously impressed at Fulham as well. From a football standpoint, what was it like sharing a field with him and a training pitch day in, day out?
When at Portsmouth, the time at which he joined us, he was an integral part of our team, and exceptional relationships with players from all over the world. And I think that takes a real skill. That takes a skill set of reading people and understanding people, and Papa was exceptional at that. On the pitch, he was a dynamic midfielder, up and down at Portsmouth. And, after that period, like many of us, myself included, you have to adapt your game, and you have to adapt your expectations from yourself. And I think that I would speak for the majority of my teammates in that season that Papa never, and having been through it myself, was never one to be moaning if he wasn't in the team. He knew his role exceptionally well. On the training pitch, it's often overlooked how important players are that aren't necessarily the first pick in the team. And what I mean by that is how important they are in training on a daily basis for standards. And Papa was very much that player. You knew that it was called upon to play, and like you said, he played 16 games a season. He was going to do his job. And I think it takes a certain man who's very secure in who they are and what they are to be able to deliver that on a regular basis. And I think it's something that young players, from a football perspective, can really look to when they get into the latter part of their career, because you have to accept that, like he did, like we all did, that you can't play every week. The older you get, you're asked to have a different role within the team, but also a different role within the squad. You said earlier about Papa being a leader. Papa was a leader, but he was a quiet leader. And 9 times out of 10, people always associate that to be a leader, you have to be a screamer and a shouter. Well, Papa wasn't that. He led by example. And as I would say, I would urge maybe some young people and young footballers now to try and take the lead from that. And I was fortunate enough to be able to share a dressing room with him and to see it firsthand, which, I was obviously extremely fortunate to do so.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And obviously, I don't want to put words in your mouth here. What I'm getting from you is that he had sort of a complete lack of ego almost, and wasn't worried about playing in the team every single week. Just wanted to do his job, made sure he did his job and what was required. And Wally talking about making teas and tidying up after people at the training ground is certainly not the. I appreciate a lot of the time it's probably wrong, the image people have of footballers. Like you say, it's people easily forget that it is just a group of 20 human beings. Although they're elite at one particular thing, it's still men with normal problems and woes and that sort of stuff. Where do you think that that lack of ego came from, and that ability to just to take everything on the chin and go about his business like that? Because all that you describe it as quite a sort of a quiet and simple way of doing things, but really you'll know better than anyone that football can be made up of some very big egos as well. Where do you think that came from in Papa, the ability to just get on with his business with a smile on his face and not let things bother him that might bother some other players?
I think if you look at it, we all formulate our habits and our behaviours during our childhood.
Yeah.
So therefore, Papa's childhood and where he came from and how he was raised, that turned him into the man that he was. So therefore, he was a man that had huge respect for everybody at the football club, and that's, from the tea lady right up to the chairman. And that's a skill in itself. What he was very good at was making sure that he knew his job. But I remember the playoff final, and Pat wasn't included in the match day squad. But if I've got a picture on the wall at home, and he's in that picture in his tracksuit, he's got the biggest smile on his face, and that tells you all you need to know about the man. It was never about him. And sometimes we can get carried away in football with our ego. Sometimes we can overtake what the goal is. The goal that season, we all knew, was to get promoted. And as I say, I've got that picture at home, and it's something that actually, you look at, and you probably look at with a different mindset and through a different set of eyes the older you get, because you see different things every time you look at it. And when I see him, I see a selfless individual who knew what his role was within that team. And it comes from 100% the values that were installed in him as a young man and as a child, because that's, if you think about it, how we all are. We are formulate our behaviours in our formative years when we're young and when we're sort of young men. So, it was a pleasure to play with Pap, obviously.
Absolutely. I think what's nice, and what comes certainly a takeaway of mine from the people I've spoken to, the things I've read, is that although it's football, which everyone thinks they'd love to be a footballer, or lots of people do, was just that although it's tragic that he's died at age 42, and obviously a life lived far too short, but it sounds like it was one full of contentment. Certainly in his adult years, he achieved his dream of playing football and was able to provide for his family back in Senegal. It's quite a nice story amongst the terrible sadness that he died at 42, that he lived a happy life and achieved the things that he perhaps set out to achieve.
Yeah, when you're a young footballer or a young person and your dream is to be a footballer, to be able to fulfil that dream, fills you first of all, and it would have filled Papa with immense pride that he was able to go and achieve his dreams of being a footballer. And not just a footballer, he was a worldwide superstar, and he played in the Premier League, but also he made his family extremely proud. And like you say, as footballers, sometimes you're put on a pedestal, but when you strip it back, I don't know, I only speak personally, but I would imagine I speak for other people as well, that to be able to make your parents proud and to be able to make your family proud is the most fantastic feeling in the world. And what I can say is that Papa has most certainly done that. It's just unfortunate, obviously, and such terrible, sad times that he's now no longer with us. So I think the biggest thing from it is that he's made so many people proud, and he's put so many perfect memories and good memories into other people. And I think he's really, really fortunate to have done that, and I'm lucky enough to be able to call him a teammate of mine.
Absolutely. 42 years well lived. Well, Matt Taylor, thank you so much for joining us. And just before I say goodbye properly, have you any final thoughts that you want to share?
Just that I think when I look back on my memories of playing alongside Papa, it would be that probably I learned so much about being selfless, and that for me is something that has helped me throughout my career, in terms of I met him at a relatively young age in my career. I was fortunate enough to play with him twice, and to be able to share in some wonderful success that we had at West Ham together made it so much sweeter. So, obviously my thoughts and my family's thoughts go out to him or to his family, and it's just such tragic circumstances that I feel very fortunate and very proud to have been able to call him a teammate.
Absolutely. Matt Taylor, thanks very much.